when someone walks in an A&E. At the moment, they're given an A4 sheet that says if you start vomiting, if you lose consciousness, essentially, if you're dying, come back. Good luck to you. You're on your own. Of the 1.4 million people that attend an A&E every year in the UK with a head injury, and 50% of them will still have symptoms after 6 months to a year. As annoying as it might sound, it'd be like having me in your pocket. It's going to be there for constant advice.
The Operator Podcast by Circle Cloud.
Theo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Why don't we start with a little intro? Tell us who you are and what is it you do?
Okay, so my name's Theo Farley. I'm a physio by background. I've worked across different sporting organisations, worked in Canada for a bit, worked in the NIHR. Now I've come to kind of specialise in concussion, or that's my area of interest. I do some research in that area, completed a PhD in the kind of field of concussion profiling for athletes. And now I'm building, co-designing, co-founding an app called Heady.
Okay, and last time you spoke, you mentioned that 80% of your clinical work is now shifted to concussion-based. Can you talk about that a bit? Yeah,
I mean, it's something that I've been doing for just under a decade now, probably, and something I feel very passionate about. It's really an unmet need within healthcare. It's something that really kind of has a very strong impact on people's lives, and something I find really rewarding to kind of manage and help people rehab from, because, you know, whether you're an elite athlete or you work at a desk, it has the same kind of impact on your life, in that you can't necessarily go to work, you can't see friends, you can't socialize, you can't watch TV in some occasions. So, you know, it really has a kind of a huge impact on people's lives, and there isn't enough kind of there isn't enough help out there for people at the moment.
So in simple terms, what is Heady and how did it come about?
So Heady is a concussion management app. It's going to be probably the first, certainly on the UK market. It is aiming to fill that gap where people just kind of slip through the cracks within the NHS at the moment. There is no recognised pathway within the NHS. So what we do through Heady is essentially kind of recreate what I do in clinic and bottle that into a digital platform. People can take it. They have all the information about. It's like a centralized depository about what a concussion is, how to manage it. It does certain tests with the patient. It helps to uncover where their symptoms are coming from. Which, you know, there can be like a range of perceptual symptoms which are really kind of difficult to live with. You know, you can feel dizzy, nauseous, headaches, kind of cognitive fatigue, brain fog, just to name a few. And we test each component that make up these symptoms, and then we provide, or Heady provides the corresponding rehab based on the individual's results. So it's very much a bespoke approach to concussion management. It's not a kind of one size fits all approach.
And how do you do the whole bespoke thing? Because it has to be, in order to become a product, it has to be formulaic to a certain extent. So how do you make it bespoke but still package it up into a product that can be put into an app?
It's a good question. What we know is that, and what I should say is that everything that we've put into the app is evidence based. So we draw from the literature, which is how I treat in clinic as well. And we know that when someone has a concussion or a mild traumatic brain injury, those two terms are used interchangeably within the literature. That there is generally impact on the autonomic nervous system. So that's the part of the brain that kind of regulates all the things that happen automatically in your body. So it could be sleep, it could be digestion, temperature regulation, but crucially in the kind of concussion sense, it's also cardiovascular function. So how much blood flow you get to your brain when you're at rest, how much blood flow you get during exercise. We can assess that through recognised protocols, through essentially a graded aerobic exercise test, and based on the individual's results that are specific to them, we can provide the right rehabilitation. Then we have issues with the vestibular and ocular motor system, so that's the eyes and the inner ear, and the balance systems. And they don't just cause poor balance; they cause, screen intolerance, huge environmental sensitivity. So going out, where I am now in central London is a nightmare for a concussion sufferer. And you have the neck-related related symptoms, so headaches that come from the neck. And then the other big piece of that is knowing how much to do during your day. How much activity is enough, how much is too much. And what we see is people have this kind of boom bust cycle of activity levels where they feel good, so they do perhaps too much, and then because they've done too much, they feel very symptomatic, so they do nothing, and it just goes up and down like this. And when you zoom out of that curve, it's really a flat kind of progression. So what we do is we pace people through kind of graded exposure to the environment, to things like reading, to being outside, walking, etc. Depending on obviously what level they start with. So some people might be quite functional, but some people potentially feel like they can't leave the house. So it starts from wherever they are in this journey, and it's that in that way that I can build this bespoke program for people. So it has a great impact, really good impact.
Because I guess the head is so fragile, isn't it? It's one of those things that we underappreciate how fragile we really are, and how important the head is, and how everything is connected.
Yeah, it's probably the most important part of your body, isn't it? And we only really think about it. We take it for granted that it's going to work normally as we go through life, but when it doesn't, we realise how important the kind of brain and the connections that it makes are for people. And as I said, can have devastating impact on people's lives.
Yeah. And talk about the name, because I've gone through a process recently where I've had to rename my product, I think 6 times. We've gone through multiple iterations of the product naming, and for various reasons, understanding of the name, being able to write it down, copyright, other reasons, we had to then change the name. We've landed on one we believe is the right one. It's called Olati now. But what was the process you followed to name the app Heady?
I think we initially started off as being Concussion Central. That was our kind of working title. We soon realised that actually, through this approach, we can help people not just with concussion, but migraine, with kind of chronic fatigue symptoms, all of the other kind of neurological conditions. And so obviously we didn't want to kind of pigeonhole ourselves into just being a concussion management app. We see a lot of areas for growth and a lot of opportunities to help people. And it almost started off as a bit of a joke name, but it really grew on us quickly, and we've got nice feedback from it. I think it kind of, it's light. It's not too kind of serious or grave,
it's not threatening. And I think that's a really good point with it has to be approachable, it has to be friendly, especially with something quite serious like this is.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody knows what heady feels like. If you say, I'm feeling heady today, kind of what that sensation should be like.
And how did you find the process of making sure it wasn't taken, or getting the domains and the whole branding exercise?
Yeah, that's definitely a voyage of discovery, and we've consulted kind of legal representation for all those kind of things, and you have to do searches across different countries, and you're going on Companies House and however many other kind of platforms to work out that there isn't something with the same name in the same kind of area of business. And obviously there are a few places. There's an accountancy called Heady, and an accountancy firm, and a few other things, but nothing in the medical field. So we're pretty comfortable with it, and I think it's, as you say, it's a really nice way of putting it. It's non-threatening, but it kind of does what it says.
You mentioned several countries. Are you looking to trademark the country, the name in several countries? But you're based in the UK, and you're going to be selling it in the UK through the NHS only, or are you looking to expand internationally as well?
The UK is definitely our kind of start point, and there's enough people that need help within the UK. So we'll definitely be starting here, but of course we'd like to expand. We want to help as many people as possible. I think we'll extend that trademark as we go, but the UK is our first point of call, and speaking to people within the UK, whether it be patients or clinicians or people that work within the administration of the NHS, for example, there's a real kind of positive kind of reception that we get for Heady. So we'll definitely start there, but expansion is definitely in the pipeline.
And let's say it's live, it's out, Heady in the App Store. how does a consumer get it? How is it priced? Is it NHS almost like recommended, or is it how do you go about getting it?
So initially, it's going to be on Google Play and App Store. That's we're an early stage startup. We need to generate some revenue. We can't go on funding it ourselves forever. But so hopefully we'll gain some traction with that. I think we will. We've already got a lot of kind of interest on our waiting list. But ultimately, we want it to be free for users. And the only way that we can really achieve that is through, well, first of all, it will be hopefully through the NHS. So we want to sell to A&Es and get, when someone walks in an A&E, at the moment they're given an A4 sheet that says, if you start vomiting, if you lose consciousness, essentially, if you're dying, come back. If you're not, good luck to you. You're on your own. And we know that, of the 1.4 million people that attend an A&E every year in the UK with a head injury, somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million of those are concussions, and 50% of them, order of magnitude, will still have symptoms after 6 months to a year. So, there's a huge unmet need here. So we really want to kind of impress on the NHS, and we've got a pilot lined up in Leeds, and that'll be our kind of start point within that area.
And what's been your go-to-market so far? You mentioned you got a wait list and you got quite a few people signed up to the wait list. How did you build that? What was the process around that?
It's through kind of social media, through our website, and word of mouth as well. There are so many people with at any one time in the UK, there's 1 million people walking around with the effects of a head injury, probably not getting what they need from kind of the medical fraternity. And so, the word does spread, and there are, forums and as I said, social media that people just chat on and kind of offer advice. So it's word of mouth at the moment, a bit of social media, but we definitely need to step up in terms of marketing.
What's driven more growth so far to the waitlist? Has it been word of mouth as the primary method of growth, or social media more? And what type of social media are you doing?
Well, it's interesting because I think that we talked about this previously. I think you said you're not it's not your natural habitat, the kind of social media environment, and that's definitely the same for me as well. But you see what kind of impact posting on LinkedIn has, and how it drives traffic to the website and drives interest and drives like encouragement and kind of and enthusiasm and real kind of people get behind you, and it's probably been kind of LinkedIn and a few other bits of social media that have kind of done the main there. And then obviously this is my kind of area of interest, and I work with a lot of people who also kind of in that area as well. So that kind of word gets around like that as well. So, but people are brilliant at kind of throwing their weight and championing things that they believe in, and it's been a really kind of rewarding experience to kind of meet these people.
That's great. What is the biggest challenge or bottleneck that you feel in terms of your growth and going to market that you face right now?
The biggest bottleneck, I think, is probably the same for a lot of people. It's always time, isn't it? When you launch something, especially a medical device, that there's so much regulation that we need to go through, whether it's cyber security or kind of the medical device regulation, or all of those kind of things. So we're chugging through everything, and we hope to be launching in the next couple of months. Once we've kind of dotted the I's and crossed the T's, but time I think is definitely our bottleneck at the moment. It's not.
So you don't have a launch. No, you haven't got a launch date set yet, but it's in the next couple of months. You expect it to be out.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, we've had a soft launch. We've done our pilot. We've had a pretty reasonable group of beta testers who've kind of helped us they've rehabbed themselves through the app, but also helped us to debug and kind of give a lot of feedback, really valuable feedback on things. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
So you mentioned that there's a lot of compliance involved when launching a medical device and an application like this. So I'm assuming there is an element of you having to handle patient data within the app. How do you do that?
We have some very clever regulatory people that do that, and my co-founder Aaron is a mechanical engineer. He's he's the tech side of Heady, and I'm the medical side, and he's very good at kind of making sure that we're very very tight in terms of our regulation and doing the right things.
Have you considered any of those compliance protocols like ISO or maybe SOC 2?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to follow the ISO protocols. They're a big part of what we do, and it's all very new for both of us. But we've as I said, we work with our regulatory advisor, and we're kind of in a good place with that. But again, it's one of those things that you just have to be very methodical about and make sure that you're getting it right, because if you don't get that right, then the app or your product has a very shaky foundation.
Yeah, we're in the same place. We wanna get ISO for Circle Cloud, and for Lati, the phone system product, we want to get ISO and SOC 2 to prove that we're handling data correctly and security correctly. And it's a lot of work to get it. And there's a company that's called Vanta. I think it's called Vanta, that has been approaching me to try and get us to sign up, because they do like a managed service where they onboard you through the SOC 2 process, and they guide you through the whole process for a fee, obviously. But I've heard good things, and there's a company that I know, a CEO that runs a company that I know, that he's used them and he recommends them. So we'll probably check them out to see what they are like.
Well, I mean, as we said, time's the bottleneck, isn't it? Often, so if you can find the ways of optimizing your time and your outputs, and it's perfect.
Time and money, right? How have you funded the app so far?
We've self-funded. We've put a good amount of investment in it. We had funding from the NIHR, the National Institute of Health and Care Research, for our pilot, which was fantastic. And we're continuing to apply for grants. And but yeah, self-funding is kind of where we've largely been.
And in terms of the next level of growth, let's say you launched and you want to take it to the next level, what would you do?
It depends on a couple of factors. So we're applying for a follow-on grant from our NIHR grant. So that's a PDA, Product Development Award. So we'll hear about the first phase of that. We've gathered a kind of coalition of NHS trusts and departments to come in on that grant with us. If that is or isn't successful, we'll still probably be looking for other investment, whether that be kind of angel investment. I'm not sure where we're kind of attractive enough yet for VC, but I think we certainly will be in the future. With us, it's a huge market, and but we probably want to get our valuation up a little bit first before we go down that road.
Otherwise, you're giving up too much of the company, aren't you?
Well, yeah, there's that, and we want to, essentially, that's probably a big part of it, isn't it? But we've got to kind of show our concept works first, which we've in part done in terms of our pilot, which was hugely successful. But we've got to get on the market.
There's a big thing about funding your projects or startups with debt or equity, and debt being the one that long term works better because you're not giving up a percentage of the company. But it's the thing is, do you how much risk are you willing to take? Because if you're funding it with debt, to get a considerable amount, you probably have to give some leverage down, and you don't want to put your house on the line for something like this. But depends on how positive or how sure you are of it working, right? Have you considered debt?
We have, there's there's an organisation within Innovate UK, the British Business Bank, I think it is, that
heard of them.
That offer pretty competitive rates for British startups, UK startups. But the debt is, we obviously want to avoid that, but you want to avoid giving up too much of your equity as well. So there's one of the things you don't really think about when you get into something like this, like an entrepreneurial kind of adventure, is how much risk you're taking. And it's only when you're really deep in it and you've really committed yourself that you realize perhaps how much you put on the line, whether it be time or money or other things. So I'm sure how that feels.
When you start signing personal guarantees, it really hits home, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to believe in your product. You got to believe that it's going to be successful. And like you, I think we pretty have a lot of confidence in what we're doing. It's going to help people, and if it helps people, then I think the funding will come.
Yeah, I agree with that. You mentioned Innovate UK earlier, did you?
Yeah, yeah. So
is that who gave you the grant? Or
no? So our grant came from the NIHR, and that was to run the pilot that we've recently completed. We did apply for a grant through Innovate UK, but it was the last grant before they changed their funding model. So it became so popular to apply for these grants that because they were open calls essentially, and you people were having to. I think maybe 6 or 7 years ago, people had to get 70 something percent to get their grant. Now it's up in the when it finished, it was up in the kind of 95%, and so hugely competitive. And because there was so much demand there, I think they stopped that funding stream, and they've changed things around. So we recently got an email from them to say that they're kind of running more specific calls now, and kind of focusing their funding on specific things rather than just this huge pot of money for an open call which anyone can apply for.
Yeah, I remember I had a meeting with a guy I know who works at Innovate UK, invited me to a meeting, and we sat down and spoken about what kind of grant we could get to fund our app that we're building. And he said, if it's AI based, you're going to have a lot more of a high chance to get the grant because there's a lot of funding going into AI. But AI is so broad, and I can imagine now they've narrowed it down to more specific use cases with AI. But are you using AI in your app in any way?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, AI is the buzzword that you kind of have to almost have to put on any application, and there are so many kind of AI inverted commas products that are essentially, I think that's what 10 years ago people used to call an algorithm, and so we are going to have AI in Heady. We haven't got it yet. Obviously, it's an expensive process, but we want to make sure that it is genuinely intelligent, and we are genuinely correcting the right metrics through machine learning to help people, because we know that we can be, I don't know if I should say this, but we can be in parts, in areas of what we do, we can be better than a clinician, because we will have hundreds of thousands of data points eventually to know exactly how someone should be progressed, how they should increase their activity levels or the intensity of their exercise, and we'll be able to predict how long someone will be recovering for based on all the metrics we collect. So making sure that it is actually a genuine AI product, and is kind of an important bit of what we're planning.
Yeah, really, I believe that. And it's not just the data points, it's also the fact that you're always there. It's a companion app. So you got the data points, but the patient can ask a question whenever they want, or they can look at the app to get the data whenever they want. They don't have to wait for an appointment with a clinician, or go to A&E and get sent back home. It's always there, right?
Absolutely. It'd be, as annoying as it might sound, it'd be like having me in your pocket. It's going to be there for constant advice. You can refer to it whether you've done too much activity. We have what's called the brain battery, which regulates activity levels, and you can refer back to that during your day and gain insight. What I'm feeling a bit symptomatic now. Why is that? Okay, this is my activity level. I can see that when I kind of simply impose my activity chart on my symptom chart, well, they clearly track, and that's something that a clinician can't offer. But we're not looking to replace the clinician. By the same token, we're looking to work with clinicians. There's a lot of hours between each appointment, and oftentimes the patient is on their own in those hours. They don't have the support that they might need. The clinicians, don't get me wrong, fantastic, but they can't be there all the time for the patients, because obviously logistically doesn't work. So Heady will kind of bridge that gap between sessions, between appointments, and when the patient does come to the clinic or the hospital, the clinician will have all of their data right in front of them, so they don't need to spend X amount of time recapping or kind of digging down on why that person's had a good week or a bad week. It's going to be all there for them. So it's a kind of a dual track with Heady. It can certainly be used by clinicians to inform their practice and to help kind of enhance the therapeutic experience for that patient. But in the event that patients don't have a clinician, because the concussion speciality is not kind of always available within private or public health, then they can help themselves, rehab themselves with Heady as well.
By talking to you, I guess having you in their pocket, as weird as that may sound, that's the moat, isn't it? It's your expertise available to them in their pocket, and that's really the moat that you created. So how are you planning on allowing somebody that's never met you and doesn't know you to then trust the app because your expertise are in the app? Are you going to leverage your personal brand by making sure they do know you, or are you going to have some kind of way of transpiring that trust in your expertise within the app?
Yeah, I think there are multiple ways that we can do that. And as we said at the start, this is not my natural environment, my natural habitat. Me talking to a phone camera and posting it on social media is not something that comes naturally to me, but something that I'm learning to live with. And hopefully I'll go through stages where I'll embrace it and then I'll enjoy it. But I think that having that kind of personal brand is really important, because you see it throughout marketing now that people trust people. They don't necessarily trust photos or words on a screen. It's they want to know where things are coming from. They want to know that they can trust that person. They have credentials that they're looking for. And obviously, if we get things through the NHS, we've done a lot of patient discovery, a lot of kind of focus groups, and people say that if it comes from the NHS, then their trust for it is much higher. So there's two ways that we can build trust, and probably I'll find many more in the meantime as well.
Yeah, because typically before Heady is available, somebody that doesn't have access to a clinician or isn't with a clinician at the time, they might go to ChatGPT and ask the question. So your years of experience and expertise into what you've built into the app trumps what they can get with something like ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, and what we've created, as I said before, is like a centralized repository of information, because you could probably think of 1,000 ways in which you could gather information, whether it be going onto forums, with a number of websites, and they don't all agree, and they're not consistent with one another. So what we've done is we've brought in the evidence base. We've through published research, and we've kind of put it into Heady, and we think that's what we've put in works really well. Now the question is, can it work when someone is self-guiding themselves through this process? And the answer of our pilot is yes, they can.
That's good. So you've transitioned, mistake me if I'm wrong, but you've transitioned, or you're in the process of transitioning from a clinician to a tech founder, you could say, right? How's that process being for you, and how have you found it? How are you finding it?
It's a bizarre kind of experience. I'm doing things now that I never thought I would do. I'm building text-to-speech products, or I'm using AI to do various things. And my old kind of way of thinking was very, very different to what it is now. And I'm being dragged into it by my co-founder Aaron, who is very techie and knows what he's doing. And he would still roll his eyes at my approach to tech, but for me, it's changed a lot. And I'm really excited by it. It's kind of a new part of a new way of working, and I think it's the future.
And you said Aaron, your co-founder, is very techy. He's a mechanical engineer by background, right? Correct. And he's now adapted to be a tech company co-founder as well, in a technical sense. Has he been the one that's built the app, or have you hired a team of devs? And how has that journey been?
So Aaron is very knowledgeable around that kind of area of tech, but we've outsourced to a team of developers, and kind of Aaron's kept an eye on things as they've gone, but he hasn't got that specific kind of code where he can code, but not to that perhaps that level. He'll probably be watching this at some point and cursing me, but yeah, he's very good, but we outsourced it to a team of developers, which was an interesting experience. And it's when you kind of in this kind of setting on a screen and you're going through things with them. There's ways that we learn other ways of kind of communicating and using different language in terms of tech language. And I feel like I've kind of been there largely. I've kind of understood most of what's going on, and then I'll have to clarify with Aaron afterwards. But it's been a good experience.
So with Aaron, your dynamic with him, you are the clinician, and would you say the face of the company, the face of the product?
I don't know. I think we're both the faces. Aaron was a patient of mine, so he had his own concussion, and I think that's really valuable for our users, our patients, our customers, to know that someone has profited from this approach. So I think we'll kind of go down a dual road and try and both be the faces of Heady, because it's important for people, for patients to know that, as I said, that this works, and so yeah, I think we'll share that burden or that role, however you see it.
I think building an app out of need is the best reason to start and actually do it. If there's somebody watching who is a clinician that's got this idea of a wonderful app to build, or a project, or a web app, or a mobile app, what would you say to them, having done what you've done and being in the position you're in, about starting their own app?
I would just say find someone that's completely different to you, has a completely different skill set, completely different way of looking at the world, and find a way of working together. Because I think that if you, more often than not, someone will find someone within their same workplace and say, pitch the idea and say, let's why don't you try this? And when you've got the same skill sets, you're not two separate people, if you know what I mean. But from Aaron and I, we work well together, but we couldn't be more different, in terms of our approach, in terms of our skill sets, in terms of many things. So that would be my biggest thing, is find someone that's got a completely different skill set and sees things differently, because we challenge one another on what we feel is the right way, and we manage to normally find a middle ground, which is great. So that's really important.
Find somebody that complements you well and your other skills that you maybe don't have.
Yeah, and kind of recognizing that we all have our limitations, and some people have less limitations, and they probably do something like this on their own. But being kind of humble to know where your skill set lies, and relying on someone else that they're going to do a good job in their side of the kind of operation is really important.
I think that's really good advice. What would you say in a year's time success looks like for Heady? Where do you want to be?
We want to be obviously on Google Play and App Store. We want to be available to people, but we want to be within the NHS, and we want to be within some sporting codes, and essentially we want to just be helping some in the region of 200,000 people within the next year. That's our goal. We feel it's realistic. We feel that there is such an unmet need here, and people, when they come across Heady, they really want to use it, because they've not had any answers. They bounce between A&E, GP, sometimes a neurologist, and more often than not, they're told come back in 4 weeks if you're not feeling better. Well, 50% of these people will not feel better within 6 months to a year. So we know the need is there. We want to help as many people as possible, and so we're setting our target around the 200,000 mark.
I think that's fantastic. I love the idea of the app, and it's great that you're building it. With the App Store point that you made earlier, and Google Play Store, I'm not sure if you've released or you've submitted the app to the App Store yet, but we submitted one recently. We've submitted 2 apps to the App Store. We did the phone system app about 6 months ago, and within about 2 days it got approved. And in between those 2 days, we had messages back and forth from Apple where they requested us to change a small thing. During the onboarding flow, there was a little thing they wanted us to change. We made the adjustments, we resubmitted it, and Apple approved it within about 2 days. Last week, I submitted another app to the App Store, and this one was in a different sector. It was a fintech app, much more simple of an app than the phone system one. And it's been a week and a half almost now. No response. Not even a single message back saying we're going to look at it. No, change the onboard. Nothing. It's still sat there waiting in review. My theory is that because of the influx of AI capability, the improvement in AI capability now, especially since Fable 5 was released and GPT Sol 5.6, the capacity of the normal human being to be able to create an app and submit it to the App Store is just increased exponentially. So I think they're flooded in applications and they just haven't got the time to physically review them without hiring a lot more people. Obviously, the model was released in June 12th, I think it was. So it's just that influx of applications. Have you heard any rumors around this? Have you submitted the application for review yet? Or what's your plan if it does take a while?
What we've realized is everything takes longer than you anticipated it to take. And so I think we just by necessity have to be fairly relaxed about that and do what we can do. You can control your own variables. But I think you're right. We've had lots of kind of discussions with people about building apps, and it becomes infinitely easier and easier. But every week it seems like, and there must be a lot on the market. But I guess from your fintech app and our medtech app, there's a lot more regulation around those kind of sectors as well, isn't there? So there may be the kind of regulatory side of it is holding things up.
That's a valid point. It might be because I categorized it as a fintech app that is now gone through a different flow altogether than a business productivity app, and it's going to take a lot longer to get reviewed. Yeah.
Well, we've got to just control our own variables, right?
Control the controllables, right? And then the fact that you've got the right mentality where you think, it will take the time it will take, and you're not stressed about it, you're not worried about it, will take the time it will take. I think that's the right approach. Have you thought about doing a web app as well? So if somebody doesn't have the access to the mobile app because it's not released yet, having it available as a website where you can log into?
It's not something we've considered because I think that so many people are just they're so familiar with their phones now that less and less people are using desktops, and especially day to day, we want to have it in people's pocket. We're Heady, we want to be in their pocket 24/7 when they need us. We don't want them to look at the app 24/7 because they got to get on with life as well. But we want to be available to them. So the web app is not something we're considering at the moment, but we are going to have other things on our website. So we're building kind of some concussion assessment platforms and stuff like that. So there'll be plenty to see on the Heady website.
I think you have to have it as a mobile available service. That's for sure, because people are going to be accessing it. I would imagine that I would access the app on my mobile phone, even if it was available on the web. But if in the interim, before it's released on the App Store, there's something called a PWA, which is basically it's called a progressive web app, and it's a normal web app, but it's responsive. So you can access it on your mobile phone and you can add it to your home screen. It's nowhere near as good as an app because you can't have native notifications, and there's a number of other things that you're missing that you don't get with the PWA that you do get with a native app. But it might be a stopgap, and depending on how your guys have coded it, some frameworks allow you to just flick a switch and inverted commas flick a switch. You can flip the app from being a iOS app to being a web app without redoing the code if it's been built in something like React Native or something like that with Expo, where you can just utilize that same code base to switch it over to a web app. That might be a workaround if they take a while. we did that with the fintech app. We just need the users. I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now is getting users. And you've done it the right way by getting the waiting list, word of mouth, and now you're doing social media work, and you're building up that momentum, which I think is the hardest part. It's not the building and making the app available. It's the distribution of the app that we all need to focus on a lot more.
Yeah, and as you say, momentum is crucial, isn't it? For yourself as a founder, you need to feel that momentum going on. It's something that drives you, and but also for your awareness, the awareness of your product, having that momentum, having it, on people's consciousness is really important. So yeah, that's not a bad idea. We'll look into that.
If you were to pinpoint one thing, and I'm sure there's many, but if you were to say just one thing that's keeping you up at night, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now between now and those 250, you said 250,000 users, right?
Yeah.
By the end of next year. So between now and then, what is the single biggest thing, the one thing that you'd say is a big hurdle coming up?
Big hurdle. I mean, it's probably the NHS pipeline. It's a long one, and people need Heady now, and we want to get it into their hands. So we've made good inroads, and if we're lucky enough to get this follow-on grant, we'll definitely be in a number of NHS trusts because they've collaborated, they're partners with us on the grant. But that NHS pipeline is essential, and we want Heady to be free at the point of access to people. We want them to get it at the A&E because that first 48 hours is crucial in their recovery journey. What you do in that period of time, if you overstimulate yourself, if you do too much cognitive load, it has a detrimental effect on how you then feel and potentially on your long term or kind of your recovery and how long it takes. So the NHS is our mountaintop, and that's where we kind of probably spend most of our headspace.
Yeah, that is literally the Everest point, isn't it? When you're able to have it under NHS, where I go to A&E because I got a concussion, I've had a head injury, and they literally say to me, here's a QR code, scan this, download this app, put in this, here's your credentials that you can use for a month free or 6 months free or whatever it is. That's what you really want. That's the holy grail, right?
Absolutely. And, we've done so many, I've treated so many people, and we've done so many kind of focus groups, and we've got people that are 5-6 years down the line, they've had to give up their job, they've had to relationships have ended, they feel socially isolated, and what they say is one of the kind of most consistent kind of responses that we get is, if I had Heady when I'd gone to A&E, I wouldn't be here now. So it really kind of hits home when you speak to people that are suffering with this injury, and that's why we've got to get it into A&Es.
Amazing. When it is launched, where can people find it other than hopefully the NHS when they go to A&E? Where else can they find it, and what will they search for?
So it's going to be on, we certainly hope it's going to be on Google Play and App Store, and they search for Heady or Heady Concussion Management, and it's going to be there. So keep looking out for it, and if anyone's interested, they want more information, then just sign up on our website. We've got a kind of a sign up page, and we're happy to talk to anyone.
Great. And Theo, if somebody wants to reach you directly, how would they reach you?
You can reach me through the Heady website or theo@headyrehab.com. Any questions, and if people are interested in Heady or concussion management, or they just have questions around how they can help themselves before Heady comes out, and I'm happy to help.
Great. I'll add it all on the show notes. Theo, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Axel. It was great to chat with you.
Likewise.